There's something almost nobody knows about Rolex. And when I say almost nobody, I'm not talking about the general public. I'm talking about collectors who have spent decades obsessing over the brand. Because we all think we understand how luxury works. You work hard, make money, walk into a boutique, build a purchase history, get on a waiting list, and hopefully one day walk out with your dream watch. That's the story we've been told for years. But there's a problem. It's not entirely true. Because there is a level within the Rolex universe where money stops mattering. A level where there are no display cases, no waiting lists, no catalogs, and where you can't even ask to buy the watch, even if you have virtually unlimited wealth. And suddenly the question is no longer, how much does it cost? It becomes something much more uncomfortable. Why did Rolex choose you, and not everyone else? Today you're about to discover one of the best-kept secrets in modern luxury. A Rolex so rare that, according to the most widely accepted estimates among collectors and industry experts, only about 10 examples exist worldwide. 10. Not 10,000. Not 100. 10. And what's even more fascinating is that most Rolex enthusiasts didn't even know this watch existed. It all began when a few photographs quietly started circulating among collectors. At first glance, it looked like an extravagant modification. A customized Daytona. A piece commissioned by some billionaire through a private jeweler. But there was one detail that couldn't be ignored. The reference number. 126538 TBR. A genuine Rolex Daytona crafted in yellow gold, set with perfectly matched pink sapphires, and paired with a pink opal dial. Such an unusual combination that it seemed to challenge Rolex's own design philosophy. Then came the obvious question. If this watch was real, why had nobody seen it before? Why were there no advertisements? Why wasn't it displayed in boutiques? Why weren't authorized dealers talking about it? It was almost as if Rolex had created a watch it never intended to publicly acknowledge. Before we continue, if you enjoy stories where luxury reveals its most secretive side, make sure to subscribe to Luxury in Minutes and turn on notifications. Because here, we don't repeat what's written in catalogs or displayed behind boutique windows. We uncover the hidden stories, the unwritten rules, and the secrets that truly drive this world. And I promise you what you're about to discover completely changes the way you'll look at Rolex. To understand why this Daytona is so special, you first need to understand how some of Rolex's most exclusive watches are created. Within Rolex, there's a category known as gem set. These pieces are crafted using natural gemstones selected under standards so extreme they border on obsession. But even within that world, this watch exists on another level entirely. The real challenge lies in the pink sapphires. It's not enough for them to be genuine. It's not enough for them to be beautiful. They must share virtually the exact same shade, the same color intensity, the same transparency, and the same way of reflecting light. One stone that's slightly lighter disrupts the harmony. One that's slightly darker does the same. Rolex rejects an enormous number of gemstones simply because they fail to meet these standards. And when they finally gather enough matching stones, there are only enough to produce a handful of watches. In other words, nature determines how many of these watches can exist. Not Rolex. But the story doesn't end there. The dial of this Daytona is crafted from pink opal, an extraordinarily delicate material that very few watchmakers use because of its fragility. Every piece displays unique, unreproducible patterns. Every dial is one of a kind. A minor mistake during machining can completely destroy the material. Producing a visually flawless dial is such a difficult task that most brands don't even attempt it. Once you understand all of this, you begin to realize why this watch is believed to exist in such incredibly limited numbers. And then another, even more fascinating question emerges. If only around 10 exist worldwide, who gets one? This is where the story stops being about watches. Because true luxury has never been about money. It's about access. You can have $100 million. You can own a yacht, a private jet, or an island in the Caribbean. But that doesn't mean Rolex will offer you this Daytona. Because at this level of the game, Rolex chooses its clients. Not the other way around. One of the names associated with this watch is Lionel Messi. And that's no coincidence. Messi is far more than one of the greatest soccer players of all time. He's a global icon whose influence extends far beyond sports. Every photograph of him reaches millions around the world. Every detail of his style is analyzed. Every watch seen on his wrist instantly becomes news. For Rolex, that kind of visibility is worth more than any advertising campaign. Mark Wahlberg represents a different, yet equally valuable profile. The ideal collector. Years spent acquiring extraordinarily rare pieces. Millions invested in fine watchmaking. Absolute discretion. no scandals, a deep understanding of the product. They're not simply buyers. They're guardians of the myth. And perhaps that's uncomfortable for many enthusiasts, because it dismantles the fantasy that anyone can obtain any Rolex with enough patience and enough money. Reality appears to be very different. There seems to be a second system. One that never appears on official websites. A system where influence, reputation, history, and public image can matter more than financial capability. That's why these pieces never appear in display cases. They can't be reserved. There are no waiting lists. They're never advertised. In many cases, even boutique employees never get to see them. These watches are handled far away from the traditional marketplace, through discreet processes reserved for a very select few. Then we arrive at another inevitable question. How much is a watch like this actually worth? The answer is as fascinating as it is absurd. There is no true market price. Because official retail pricing becomes irrelevant when the watch almost never reaches the open market. Current estimates place its value around $800,000. Some experts believe exceeding $1 million isn't a possibility. It's simply a matter of time. Because once an object stops behaving like a product and starts behaving like a statistical anomaly, the rules change. It's no longer just about the gold, or the diamonds, or even the technical complexity. What matters is how many people can own it. And when that number is 10, desire takes on an entirely different dimension. In the world of ultra-luxury, something extraordinary happens. Price stops reflecting the object itself and begins reflecting the prestige associated with owning it. It's the same phenomenon seen with certain works of art or automobiles produced in one-off quantities. You're no longer buying an item. You're buying a story, a narrative, a position within an ecosystem where very few are granted entry. And perhaps that's the real reason this Daytona fascinates collectors so deeply. Because it reveals a truth many luxury brands prefer to keep hidden. Luxury doesn't always reward the wealthiest. It rewards those with access, those who belong, those who were chosen. After hearing this story, you may never look at Rolex the same way again. Because you've learned something no catalog explains and few sales associates ever mention. There are levels within luxury that the vast majority of people will never see. Levels where waiting lists no longer matter. Where money stops being the key. And where brands carefully select who gets to represent their most exclusive creations. This Daytona isn't simply a watch. It's an invitation, a password, a key that unlocks an invisible door for the other 99.99% of the world. And perhaps that's what makes it so fascinating. Because we all want to believe there's a secret door somewhere, and that somehow one day we might be able to walk through it. But Rolex seems to have a different perspective. Some doors aren't meant to be opened. They're meant to remind you that they exist. And that's exactly what makes this Daytona one of the most unattainable Rolex watches ever created. Now I'd love to hear your opinion. If you were in Rolex's position, would you produce more pieces to satisfy demand, or would you preserve this level of secrecy and extreme exclusivity? Let me know in the comments because this debate says a lot about how we understand luxury, status, and desire today. And if this journey into Rolex's hidden world surprised you, don't forget to subscribe.